Welcome to the InnerPrincess course guide to Seagull Stacks Hard. As covered in the front 9 video, this is probably one of the most feared courses in the game, and for good reason. If you don't make good decisions here, mistakes will be punished. This course also holds a special place in my heart, as this is where my Walkabout multiplayer experience started, when I played my first group round with Zombie Snack, Hey Daddy, For Real, and Lieutenant Captain. The advice I took on from these wise masters still stays with me today, and is why I always look forward to the challenge of Seagull Stacks Hard. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe if you find these guides useful, and to support future content. Anyway, on with the guide. When I think of Seagull Stacks Hard, I think first of hole 10, as it sums up the complexity of this course brilliantly. Risk, reward, options, knowns, unknowns, all play a part in this layout. For this video, I'll be covering what I consider to be the main routes available, and I've no doubt there are more, so please don't consider this an exhaustive list. Your choice of route should depend on your skill set, what score you're aiming for, and how much risk you're willing to take to achieve it. For the first route, you'll be heading along the left side of the layout, through the gap you see straight ahead of you with enough weight to have sight of the narrow alley between the sand traps on your next shot. From here, you'll need to play into the stone, giving your ball a small jump on the bounce point and into the rocks. This combines precision and fortune in order to achieve an easier birdie 3-putt, and so when combined with the hard first shot, is not an easy route. Next, a route which aims at an eagle 2 and requires 2 very precise shots. The first is to take on the narrow gap into the first column with the right weight to leave you a long putt straight to the hole along the right side of the layout. Not only does this line and weight need to be perfect, but the following shot is certainly not a tap-in. Take this route if you truly believe in yourself, or if you're desperate for a round recovering eagle. Now we come to the route I would call the best balance of risk and reward, and I've come to that decision having seen a player by the name of Diddley42 make repeated birdies against me using this option. The first shot is a simple, positional shot to here, giving a path through to the right edge of the green. This leaves a second shot with a fair margin for error on power, and you're almost guaranteed side to the cut providing your line is good. From there, you've got a long but makeable putt for 3 and a near certain par if you miss. My previous preferred route was to take a short shot forward off the tee, then aim to play over to the rocks to the right of the green with just enough weight to leave a monster length putt for birdie. This takes the pressure off the first 2 putts and gives the chance to show off by making the long third shot. And of course, if you really want to show off, there is the trick shot tee shot. If you turn left at the tee and aim for this rock edge, you'll be able to chip your ball up into the air and along the left side of the green. With the right blend of skill and luck, you'll end up close to, if not in, the hole. The risk here is that if you miss, you're probably out of bounds and back to the tee with nothing gained but another stroke on the scoreboard. Hole 11 is some welcome relief after the monster hole 10. This 3-tiered cascading par 3 should be a fairly safe birdie and one that you should feel confident approaching. Although the gaps in the stone walls suggest you should weave a left, then right, then left to the hole route for 3, you should be aiming to bounce over the second wall, and it was almost certainly designed that way. Aim safely through the gap ahead of you and look to land your first bounce anywhere from the halfway point onwards. This should send you over the first wall and into the back wall of the final green. The angle of the rocks at the back doesn't often provide a hole-in-one, but it's definitely there as a possibility. Your second putt should be a safe length, so take your birdie and move on. Now, as a player who takes pride in a safe, consistent style which takes advantage of other players missing trick shots, I enjoy hole 12. Anyone who stood at this tee with For Real will know there are loads of shots that you could do from here, but what you could do doesn't always align with what you should do. Sitting at the top of a ramp, you make your way down to the split green. The cup is situated to the right and is housed among a cluster of stones. There is a central stone which serves as your only direct line to prevent running off the open-backed green and off the cliff edge. If you're brave enough to try, there is a corner edge you can play to which bounces your ball towards the hole and should leave you a simple putt for birdie. The safe first shot is to play into the wider exposed edge of the stone and rebound your ball to the left side of the green. My pro tip here is to play this shot at a slight pace, just enough to give your ball a small jump on the ramp. This way, the deflection should and could leave your ball aligned to the hole. If you fancy taking on the long putt, there's a chance at a birdie. If you happen to leave your tee shot short, it's best to aim your second shot into the side wall, as the rocks there are reasonably risk-free and should send your ball towards the cup. Whatever happens, as long as you don't take silly risks, at least a par should be guaranteed here. Hole 13 is reasonably simple in its approach, and the par 5 is perfectly achievable with relatively simple shots. What makes this hole interesting is that with minimal risk, there's a chance to shave up to 2 strokes off your round just by nailing 2 skillful shots. The layout is split into 3 tiers with a hole and tunnel system connecting each. How you get into these joining holes is where the score is won and lost. There's no direct route to the first hole, so you'll need to use one of these deflecting stones. Take my advice and aim for the right rock, as this rock has a much higher chance of going in. Aim about 3 inches from the right edge, and once the spin kicks in, you should end up in the hole. Once down to the second tier, you should be delivered quite consistently to the same area. Be sure to check to see if you have a line to the hole, as on occasion this will be available to you. If you don't have that direct line, you'll need to hit the left side of this rock here to take a deflection towards the second hole. This will take you down to the third and final green, and you'll have taken hopefully either 2, 3 or 4 shots to get there. The final putt shouldn't cause too much trouble, but make sure you don't undo any hard work by missing that one. There's actually quite an easy hole-in-one route, which is to hit the ball backwards to chip it up, causing it and it lands in the hole like 9 times out of 10. Next we come to the par 3 hole 14, which sets your ball at the top of a pair of step routes down to a green which features the cup on a raised mound. There's a very tempting pillar stone at the back of the green, which will undoubtedly spark your trick shot curiosity, but for the sake of focusing on the probable rather than the possible, I'm going to declare that there are no high percentage alternatives to taking the stairs. Yet. So with that out of the way, we have a simple choice, left or right. Going left has the potential to leave your ball facing a kinder slope up the mound, but runs the risk of your ball going out of bounds at the base of the steps, as there's a relatively low perimeter wall, and this makes it a less reliable route. So take the right path. It's best not to hit too hard here either, and just let the shot trickle down the safer right path and hope for the best when you reach the bottom. Once you're down, you'll likely have to contend with some angle play to make your birdie putt, but just remember that if you're not betting on yourself to make this shot in one, focus instead on just keeping your ball on the top tier to secure your par. Hole 15 joins Hole 10 and Hole 18 in the ranks of the top 3 holes which define Seagull Stacks Hard, and I love and hate them all equally. This particular layout is a maze-like splatter of perimeterless green, and at first it may appear as there are only 2 routes to take, which are taking an easy shot to here, another slightly harder shot to around this length, a third longer shot to give sight of the hole, and a final putt for birdie. Or loading the first shot with more difficulty by playing to here, going along the narrow corridor to this region, a third shot to give sight of the cup, and then in for a comfortable 4. Personally, I find the first of these 2 routes simpler and have never failed to secure a birdie this way. But I cannot move on to hole 16 without discussing the potential shortcut. This is one of those routes that leaves you convinced the designers knew what they were doing when they cut an angle into a seemingly just decorative rock. The aim is to play a long, straight putt all the way down to this area here, but without going off the end. If you somehow nail this in one, you'll need to play into this angle here in order to send your ball bouncing onto the green for an eagle 3 opportunity. There are 3 risks here though. You might miss the final putt because you're too busy being smug. You might not make the second edge shot, or you'll go out of bounds and miss your mark on the first shot. With all that in mind, I elect to keep firmly planted on the mat and play for a birdie. Hole 16 is quite a fun par 4 and is another green broken up into cascading tiers, with the cup sat just beyond the narrow top level. The steps between layers are made up of individual rocks, each with different angled surfaces and with uneven joins. Looking at the layout strategically, you can see firstly that the steps are not hugely reliable as they contain a fair dosage of unknowns. And secondly, that because of this thin strip serving as a safety barrier, it's better to be on this side of the hole than this side. With that in mind, my InnerPrincess golden pro tip is to aim to overhit your first shot rather than underhit. If you want to reach the hole the conventional way and not fall short, I'd recommend aiming for the right side of this rock here, with enough power to land your first bounce anywhere from here onwards. This should see you make it over the dividing peak wall and close to the hole. Remember, if you overhit and roll off the cupped here, you're still in a safe enough position to follow up. Landing close to the hole should score you an eagle, and a birdie is still likely if you roll beyond. If you're too cool to go the conventional way, or you just want to avoid the unknown factor of those rock steps, turn 180 degrees and chip your ball up off this stone at the back, clearing the first step up and bounce your way onto the final green or even into the cup. I actually prefer this route as I find it a little easier to judge than the bounce off the first step, so give it a try if you're feeling spicy. Stay with me folks, because we're almost there. Hole 17 is undoubtedly the calm before the storm of hole 18, but that doesn't mean it's as easy or enjoyable as it may look at first. The layout requires a shot up and down the banked wall ahead of you and through a narrow gap in the stones surrounding the green. It's the width of this gap which provides the difficulty, and the need to balance line and weight when judging the banking. Playing this hole by instinct may give you the false belief you're just going to make the shot in one and sink your birdie after, but the reality is that you'll often over or underhit, leaving you with no view of the cup. One route players have found to focus more on line than weight is to aim to hit the tallest stone in the upper wall at the top of the banking. With the right power, this should jump your ball over the green's entry gate and leave you a safe length birdie putt, so consider this as an option to try out. If you are taking the banking route, my advice is to play a line not much more than a putter head length away from the right wall and use as little of the banking as you need to return your ball through the gate. It's a route involving a little less chaos and a little more order and feels really good to hit. So here we are, the grand finale of Seagull Stacks Hard, and what a killer to end the round on. Everything you've learned so far playing this course is to prepare you for this hole, the ultimate example of knowns and unknowns. As you can see, there is a raised platform of pure, smooth, uninterrupted green, and below it a chaotic level of rough cut perimeter rocks, a jagged inner edge to the raised platform, and obstacle stones for good measure. My advice is to stay up top in the knowns and avoid the lower tier at all costs. At a par 5, the route for eagle would be through the first narrow opening, over to the left, then straight down into the hole. If, like me, you don't feel confident making the first shot, take a relief shot to here, a second easy play through the gap, and then onwards for a birdie. Of course, you can miss the final shot because it's not the easiest to hit, and you're still safe for a par. If you do somehow find yourself down in the rough stuff, my tip is to deal only with the knowns. Avoid bounces where possible and look for clean lines to freedom. Do this and you'll know exactly how many shots you are away from the hole. All you need to do then is just make them. Of course, with nothing being sacred in Walkabout Mini Golf, the community has found a way to shortcut this hole too, albeit with a difficult tee shot. If you play just beyond the first set of flowers on the right and aim to carry your ball to the front edge of the rock wall, you can be in for a lucky enough bounce to send your ball all the way to the final green and even potentially in the hole. Of course, if you get this wrong, you could be in all kinds of trouble, so use this option wisely. That brings to an end what I consider to be the toughest course on Walkabout Mini Golf so far, and hopefully with these tips you won't feel too defeated by this tricky one. As ever, please do drop me a comment below if you've anything to share, hit like on the video if you found it useful, and subscribe to the channel if you like the content I'm putting out. If you have any requests for course guides, feel free to let me know and I'll see about shifting them up the priority list. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you out on the course.